Hi guys, happy Tuesday. So today, why do you don't like that? Today I am here with my mom.
Hi.
Mom, introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Amanda's mom.
Okay, and today I thought that we could go into a Q&A of my learning disability, my neurological disability, and how it has been for her as a parent, and help others out there if they view this. So what do you think, what was going through your mind after I was born, because something happened?
Well, when you were born, it was a normal pregnancy, normal birth, and then a couple hours after you were born, one of the nurses was bathing you and saw that there was a lump on the back of your head, and that was the first indication that there was anything different or anything to be worried about. We didn't know what that lump on your head was.
Did they tell you later what the lump was?
Well, what happened was they let us leave the hospital and take you home, but they said we had to have an appointment first for a CAT scan. So we couldn't actually leave the hospital until the CAT scan appointment was scheduled. What happened was I had one of my nurses in the hospital she was a woman who had been a midwife in Jamaica, and she had seen similar infants before. She had a strong idea of what it was, but she couldn't say. It was outside her role.
Right.
But she said, she just cautioned me carefully, and she said, be sure you have this appointment and make sure you follow up. And it was really interesting, and because she remembered me from when your sister was born 2 years prior. So, yeah. So, we knew maybe something was wrong, but we didn't really know what. We just thought it was like a growth, like extra skin, or who knows. So yeah.
Was there anything else that anyone said afterwards, other than her big chat for disappointment, or other than that?
No, the pediatrician came in. She examined you, and she said, yeah, we need to find out what's going on. But you had 10 fingers, 10 toes. Your APGAR score was fine. You looked fine. You were strong. You were yelling. You were nursing, so everything was fine. And then when during labor, I had Nubane, it helps dull the pain.
Okay.
And I think because of the Nubane, you didn't have any pain, as right after during and after birth. So we were home for a few days before we realized that your skull was super sensitive and nobody could touch that lump, and if we did, you would just shriek. You were in horrible, horrible pain whenever somebody went near the back of your head. And so we knew that there was more to it than just extra skin growing there. So we went to the CAT scan, and then that was a week later, and they said that there was venous tissue that it outside your skull, and that you had to have an MRI. And so what they meant was they at the time decided that it was something called Dandy-Walker syndrome, in which on the 28th day of gestation, when the spinal tube is closing in your little tiny body, when the seam stitches along your neural tube, something goes wrong. And so yours was up in it wasn't like a lumbar thing, it was way up in the cervical area. It was C4. And what happened was a cyst formed and pushed your cerebellar tissue to the outside of your skull. So your cerebellum was outside your skull, but covered with skin.
Lovely mental image.
So, well, I'll just tell you. So then,
okay.
then we met with a neurosurgeon, and you had the MRI, and then we went into his office and to consult with him, and he actually, his son had been in some kind of an accident. I don't remember what it was. He had fallen off his bike or something like that, and had a brain injury. It was skull injury, and they discovered that this kid had a similar thing in his skull, but the difference was that his tissue never grew on the outside of his skull, but he was offering his son as evidence that you could still live a normal life, because some people have this sort of a growth and they don't even know it, but because the problem with you was the amount of pain you were in. Like you had to lay on your stomach at all times. You could never, I couldn't even put a wet washcloth on the back of your head because it was so super sensitive. And so we'd put like all your clothes around backwards so that you didn't have to lay on your back for us to get you dressed. And so what happened was, apparently when they let an infant leave the hospital, like if you're born and something's wrong, they keep you in the hospital and do whatever surgery they need. But we didn't know anything was wrong. So they let you come home. If they let you come home, then they won't take you back in the hospital for anything for 90 days because they want you to be home and nursing and growing and developing, antibodies and antibodies, is that right? And
Who knows?
Just getting a little bit stronger before anything else traumatizes your body. So for us, the 3 month, because you were August 25th, so the 90 days was Thanksgiving. So we went in the day before Thanksgiving. I took you in for like pre-op stuff. They weighed you and all that, did blood tests. And then Monday, so because then we had Thanksgiving weekend. And then that Monday morning we took you in, and that was when they did the surgery on the back of your skull they tried to push the cerebellum back in and remove what would not go back in, and then stitch it all up.
What caused my learning to be different? Like, do you think all of this kind of aided into it?
Yeah, so there's two different things going on. One is the fact that this cyst grew at all. Okay. And because it's taking the place of the cerebellar tissue, you don't have that, right? And so that does a lot of your directional things, like, crossing your midline and having a sense of direction and things like that, sense of time and space.
Which I don't.
She does not, no. Don't spin her around and leave her outside alone because you'll never find her again. But
oh, look, woods.
So that was a thing. So this cyst is sitting in your brain, and it's pushing down on other brain parts, like your corpus callosum, and that is supposed to be like an almond-shaped thing, and you're just like flat because of the cyst sitting on it, and so it just messes with stuff. But what happened though was that the surgery itself was extremely traumatizing to you, because before the surgery you were like a normally developing baby, and you were but you were super strong, because if somebody set you down wrong, you could flip over. Before you were even 3 months old, you could roll over and do all kinds of little like self-protection things, but you were strong.
Not this way.
And after the surgery, you all your muscle tone was gone. You were just limp, and it was bad. It was you had no muscles at all. Like there's a muscle that holds your eyes closed when you're sleeping, and you didn't have that muscle. So your eyes would not close when you were sleeping. So I'd go in and check on you, and you'd be lying there in your bassinet with your eyes partially open. It was pretty freaky. And so I'd have to like close your eyes for you, like put in little eye drops, and then like there's a muscle that holds your mouth closed when you're, and so your mouth would be open all night. You'd breathe through it. You'd dry out the whole inside of your mouth and try to, it was just bad. I'd have to spritz you with artificial saliva to keep, because your mouth was so dry, your lips would be chapped. And so a lot of these muscles get your hand on your eye. It took months and months, and in some cases years, to properly develop. And that's why some of your speech is still a little slow at times. And a lot of, your fine motor skills, your, occupation, because you have had years of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and whatnot, but,
and speech therapy.
The speech therapy, so yeah, it was speech therapy, like technically, but when you were that young, you couldn't talk till you were 4, so you were signing a lot, and we had other ways, like we had posters with pictures, and you could point to what you wanted and try to point to symbols and things, and use sign to tell us what you wanted. But the speech therapy, more than helping you speak, was to help you chew and swallow and be able to process your food in your mouth, swallow it down, and then keep it down.
So kind of work on those muscles as well.
Because you were tiny, you were skinny, and we were constantly trying to make sure you had enough calories every day to, ideally to gain weight, but at least to not lose weight. And we had a nurse would come in every week to weigh you to make sure that you were not losing weight. They wanted to put in one of those gastric tubes for us to feed you directly into your stomach, and we didn't want this tube to happen. So we had to give you 1,100 calories a day, and we just had to keep putting butter on everything and whipped cream on everything, and just like try to pile it on to make sure you had enough calories. And but yeah, so the speech therapy, a lot of that was moving your tongue, swallowing, things like that, to through language, trying, and sipping and chewing, and just to get the whole mouth and throat, all working together so you could eat properly. And then you started talking when you were...
Now I won't shut up.
But so you had significant delays, because the brain surgery, it equated to like a TBI, which is a traumatic brain injury, and just set your body back and like, put it on a different setting mode. And but things took a long time, but you're still, you gained the skills. Like you must know you couldn't walk till you were 7. And before then you had a walker, and you were all over the place zipping around in your walker. Like you still were able to get where you wanted to go. So you've always found ways to navigate around the situation, find ways to problem solve. But and I think we noticed, like, when you try to hop on one foot or stand on one foot, like even though you're 24, 25.
Wow, my mom is
You'll be 25.
my
Yeah.
age.
You'll be 25. But you're still getting better at things like that. So, which is great. I think, and some words and phrases you say faster. There's still
some of them.
Yeah, and I think it's fine.
Not all.
Because you can learn, your mind can learn throughout your whole life. And there's no reason why your mind can't also train your body throughout your whole life. You can learn new activities and new skills. We didn't have any reflexes. That was kind of a scary thing. Because like an insect would land on you and you would just not react because you didn't have that like instant reaction. So we had to pattern all your reflexes. You probably don't remember this, but we had a lot of fun when you were like, smaller. We'd kind of stand you up we'd sit on the couch and you'd be standing sort of leaning against the back of the couch, and we would just push you over and and grab your arms and swing them up so that you'd catch yourself when you fell down, and you'd laugh and laugh and laugh when everybody's laughing. And we never let you fall on your face. Obviously we would catch you, we were right there, but we'd do this like push, one person would push you, the other would grab your arms and guide them to be up and catch yourself. And so now you can catch yourself. And it sounds crazy, but if you think about it, people pattern their reflexes all the time, because it's just like if you are in a new house, right, and you want to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you walk down the hall and you go into the bathroom and you instantly, within a few days, right where that switch is in the light, and you flip the switch on. You might not even be wide awake, but you know where it is because you pattern that reflex. You sit down in your car and you grab the seatbelt, buckle up, it's all a reflex that you pattern.
And you position where the brake is, where the gas is.
Right. So it's a similar thing. You can pattern anything. What happened with you was you were in this Head Start program in Genesee County, New York in 1996. You started in the program. Was it Head Start? No, it wasn't called Head Start.
It started a year after.
It was early intervention. Yeah. Well, you started, so you were born in August. You had your surgery
95.
in November, right?
Yeah.
Surgery's in November 95. Then you had this pretty lengthy recovery time. This was like January, February. So in that spring.
Okay.
Because you were born in one county but lived in another. So some of these services, like just information about them, slipped through the cracks because we weren't getting all the information. Like Genesee County didn't know you were born. Monroe County didn't know you needed services. So it was just stuff like that. So finally, we got on board in Genesee County with the early intervention program. And they were just tremendous and amazing, caring people. And they sent a whole fleet of people to the house every week. You had physical therapy, occupational therapy. Marge and Kevin, they worked as a team to make sure that they just adapted your surroundings to make sure you could do everything you wanted to be able to do. You had speech therapy. And then prior to speech therapy, you had it was like special ed for little toddlers, just to help you navigate and get your way around the house, help you find ways to communicate. You had a nutritionist. She would help us figure out what to add to your food to help you gain weight. You had the nurse who came and weighed you all the time. It was tremendous. I mean, we just had a tremendous group of people every single week. And so it worked out great. And then, so that was until you turned 3. You turned 3 in August and then went on to preschool. And that was a universal pre-K program where you still had all those services. It was just a different group of people. So that was when Mrs. Cliff was your teacher. And but you still had occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech. And I think around that time we didn't have to weigh you so much. By the time you were over 3, I don't think we were still weighing you a lot, but didn't have to be all every 2 weeks like it had been. So and then so you had this pre-K, like September through June, and then in the summer, July and August, there were people who would come to the house again, like they did when you were a toddler. And so then when you went on to kindergarten, you still had PT, OT, and speech pushed into your school day. So when you were like in primary, instead of PE with the class, like gym class, you'd go to PT and have physical therapy, that type of thing. So that worked out pretty well.
got me out of PE.
It did for a while, and then you did end up in PE, as you might recall.
Yeah.
But by the time you were like, 7th, 8th grade, I can remember something had happened with the speech therapist there. The one person who was outstanding had left or couldn't fit you in her schedule, or something happened. And so this other woman was there, and she was totally incompetent. And you were telling her how speech therapy should go. You were explaining to her
I do kind
how
of
to do it.
I do kind of remember that. I remember that a little bit.
She was awful. As I remember going in and saying, I was pissed. Because you figure you had speech from when you were 1 to now, like, 14, say. Said, freaking, for 13 years, you've had this training. If this was an Olympic event, you would be, like, ready to win the gold medal now.
Yes.
You don't need this clown who doesn't know what she's doing, trying to tell you how to speak. So that was the end of speech therapy. That was bad.
Yeah.
But, and that was almost the end of your public school career.
Anyway,
then
so...
they just got you out of there. But
Yeah.
moved on to greener pastures. But anyway,
which will be a different video.
on another day. Oh, so this is over 20 minutes. How long do you want those to be?
Yeah, so I was actually just gonna wait till it stopped explaining, and then I was gonna say, okay, well, because of the length,
we'll do it another day. We'll fix our hair next time.
We'll do it, yes. We'll do another video where I'll bring my mom in and she'll explain a bit more, or we'll go on to another topic completely.
Like, how about snow on May 9th in Western New York? Because this is ridiculous weather.
In May.
It's COVID weather.
We'll talk about that.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.